Hello and welcome back to the Second Chance Live channel here on YouTube. I'm happy to see that you decided to stop by to watch this video presentation. Thank you. In today's video presentation, I'm going to be sharing the fifth part of an article series that I wrote several weeks ago. I've been making video presentations of each part as I have gone along through this series. To read part 5 of the article, I'll put my glasses back on and bring up the article. You are an important part of my process, and I always enjoy our times together. I'd encourage you to send comments and or questions through the comment section here on YouTube or through my contact information page on Second Chance to Live at secondchancelive.org. Here's the article. Second Chance to Live, Lessons from My Journey Finding Myself. Hello and welcome back to Second Chance to Live, my friend. I'm happy to see that you decided to stop by to visit with me. Thank you. Several days ago, I began a series to share some lessons that I wanted to share during my keynote presentation in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but did not have the time to do so during the Southwest Conference on Disability 2013 earlier this month. My encouragement would be to read each of the previous parts of this article. Each part of the article builds upon the previous parts of the article. In part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4, as well as now in part 5, I share what I've learned through my process. To read each of these parts, please click on these links. And in my article here on Second Chance to Live, I create active links to each of the 4 parts, and we'll create a link to the 5th part of this article. I would encourage you to watch each of the previous parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4, which are on my YouTube channel. The information that I provided in part 5, as well as in conjunction with the previous parts of the articles, has helped me to find myself. In the event that you have a difficult time knowing who you are, please read on. I wrote the below article in May of 2007 to share what I discovered that has helped me to find myself. This is the article, Displaced Sadness Revisited. In many dysfunctional family systems, shame plays a large part in the interactions. It's a core driver. It seems to be a core driver within the family system. Shame can be used in various ways. Shame is used to avoid uncomfortable feelings and or personal accountability through blame. Shame can also be deployed to prevent physical and emotional abandonment, as well as a weapon to keep people from getting too close. Blame through shame mandates compliance to avoid the threat of abandonment. In such family dynamics, each individual has to discard parts of themselves in order to avoid being shamed or abandoned. Such a dynamic can be seen in the individual's physical, emotional, and spiritual development. Early in the child's life, disowning or discarding parts of themselves occurs each time a trait, quality, or characteristic displeases the parent or caregiver. Unconsciously, the child learns through the parent's eyes and gestures what pleases and displeases them. The child begins to associate any quality, characteristic, or behavior that does not please the parent as bad. In the event that the parent withholds affection or attention from the child, when the child does not please the parent, the threat of physical and emotional abandonment is instilled in the child. Withholding affection or attention can be a terrifying event for any child. The child unknowingly begins to associate certain behaviors with specific responses from the parents or caregivers. As the child continues to develop, they learn that repressing what does not please the parent is a way to avoid making mommy and daddy angry. Repression, the unconscious exclusion of painful impulses, desires, or fears from the conscious mind. That's the definition of repression. Over time, the child learns that in order to please his or her parents, they must discard any trait, characteristic, or quality that displeases the parent. Unconsciously, the child may fear the threat of emotional and or physical abandonment. Depending upon the level of dysfunction in the family, the child may begin to use active suppression to protect themselves from feelings of abandonment. This is one definition of suppression: the conscious exclusion of unacceptable desires, thoughts, or memories from the mind. Excuse me. As repression turns into suppression, denial becomes the operative mechanism to discard what is perceived as being unacceptable to the love object or parent. Because the child learns to associate negative outcomes with specific qualities, characteristics, and traits, the child discards what does not please the parent or caregiver. In the process, the child unconsciously associates parts of themselves as being bad or defective. As a result, the child learns that it is not safe to have those qualities, characteristics, or traits that result in love being withheld from them. As the child continues to develop from an adolescent to a teenager, they may be unable to differentiate between what makes them valuable, special, and unique, and they have to discard so not to be ridiculed, rejected, alienated from other people and themselves, and abandoned emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Consequently, the child develops into an adult. Consequently, as the child develops into an adult, they may have no idea who they really are as an individual. And that was my case. I was so other-hated. What other people thought of me was more important than what I thought of myself, because I traded my judgment for the judgment of other people. As the child becomes an adult, they may be led to believe that unless they comply, something will be withheld. As the child becomes an adult, they may find themselves acting out similar behaviors in their relationships. As the child becomes an adult, they may find themselves seeking out relationships with people who also communicate that unless they discard parts of themselves, they will be abandoned, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. As the individual gets older and begins to seek to form intimate relationships, an interesting phenomenon occurs. The traits, qualities, or characteristics once discarded as they were growing up are now admired in the new relationship. Initially, these traits are valuable and appreciated in the beloved, and then something horrible happens. The shame once assigned to those discarded parts of the individual is now transferred on to the beloved. Insidiously, the beloved is now expected to carry that shame for having those once admired traits. Instead of these traits being encouraged and nurtured, they are now viewed as a threat. A confusing double message is sent, and confusion enters into the relationship. What was once admired is now shunned. Unconsciously, the individual may not realize that displaced sadness is the reason why they are shunning what was once admired. In the event that these two people stay in the relationship, the individual being shunned for having traits previously admired will have to continue to discard the trait, quality, or characteristic that the individual that they're involved with the relationship with is shaming to maintain the relationship. In the process, they lose themselves in the relationship to avoid being shamed. In the process, shame wins out as neither individual has the freedom to be themselves in the relationship. In the process, creativity that may have sustained the relationship may be neglected and thrown by the wayside. I found that the solution to ending the cycle of displaced sadness resides in the place of honesty. I need to look at the parts of myself that I've had to discard to maintain my relationship. Once I begin to realize that someone wants me to carry his or her displaced sadness, I need to evaluate if staying in the relationship is good for me. I have come to believe that I can not help anyone by carrying his or her sadness. If I continue in that relationship, I may find myself being dragged under emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Each person needs to resolve their own sadness and shame as it hinders them. This process ultimately needs to be their choice. I no longer want to discard parts of myself in order to be loved or valued by another person, especially at the expense of carrying someone else's unresolved sadness. This is the end of part 5 of the article. I want to thank you for taking your time to listen to this article. I know that I covered a lot of information that may be difficult to connect the dots, why certain things happen in relationships when individuals are ashamed for having traits that they previously admired. Please do be in touch with me. Send me questions or comment, and I'll get back with you. I'll say so long for now. Have a great day, and God bless both you and your family. So long now.